Welcome back to another Infactually video. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of World War I, but with a twist. We're here to debunk some common misconceptions about this monumental conflict. So, let's separate fact from fiction. But before that, we'd like to ask you to help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us. With that being said, let's continue with the video. Gas attacks were widespread and deadly. While it's true that gas attacks were a horrifying reality of World War I, the idea that they were as widespread or as deadly as often portrayed needs some clarification. Yes, gas attacks occurred, but they were not the predominant form of warfare, and their effectiveness was limited. Soldiers were equipped with gas masks. One key factor that mitigated the impact of gas attacks was the widespread use of gas masks. Military forces on both sides were quick to develop and distribute gas masks, providing a defense against the deadly chemicals. This essential protective gear significantly reduced the overall casualties caused by gas attacks. The effectiveness of gas as a weapon was limited. Contrary to popular belief, gas attacks did not always achieve the intended devastating results. Weather conditions, wind direction, and the difficulty of maintaining a lethal concentration of gas in the battlefield air all contributed to the limitations of gas as an effective weapon. Many times, gas attacks dissipated without causing significant harm. While gas attacks were undoubtedly a terrifying aspect of World War I, it's essential to understand that they were not as widespread or as deadly as commonly portrayed. The image of soldiers facing constant and deadly gas attacks doesn't accurately reflect the overall experience of warfare during that period. All soldiers lived in muddy and filthy trenches. While the image of soldiers slogging through knee-deep mud in filthy trenches is deeply ingrained in our perception of World War I, the truth is more nuanced. Not all trench systems were perpetually muddy and squalid. Some were better constructed and maintained, and soldiers could experience vastly different conditions depending on their location. Some were better constructed and maintained. It's essential to recognize that not all trenches were the same. Some were well constructed and fortified, featuring wooden supports, duckboards, and even dugouts for shelter. These trenches offered soldiers a comparatively better living environment, with conditions that were far from the muddy and squalid stereotype. Soldiers could experience vastly different conditions. The conditions in trenches varied widely based on factors like geography, weather, and the military's ability to maintain and improve the trench systems. Soldiers on the Western Front might have faced more challenging conditions than those on other fronts, such as the Italian or Eastern fronts. While muddy and challenging trenches were a reality for many, it's crucial to understand that not all soldiers lived in the same conditions. The popular image of perpetually muddy and filthy trenches doesn't capture the full spectrum of trench life during World War I. The war had no impact on civilians in neutral countries. While neutral countries might not have been directly involved in the fighting, the war had significant effects on their civilians. From economic hardships to political changes and even refugee crises, the impact was far-reaching and often underestimated. Neutral countries faced economic challenges as trade routes were disrupted and markets were affected by the global conflict. The demand for resources, coupled with blockades and disruptions in shipping, led to shortages, inflation, and economic struggles for civilians in these supposedly untouched nations. The geopolitical landscape shifted even in neutral countries. The war had ripple effects that influenced political decisions, alliances, and diplomatic relations. Neutrality didn't shield these nations from the political turbulence of the time. As the war unfolded, neutral countries often found themselves hosting refugees fleeing the conflict zones. Civilian populations in these nations had to grapple with the challenges of accommodating and supporting those displaced by the war. Some neutral countries actively engaged in humanitarian efforts, providing aid and support to war-torn regions. This showcases that, even though they weren't directly involved in the conflict, their citizens and governments recognized the importance of helping those affected by the war. The Christmas Truce was a universal event. While the Christmas Truce is a remarkable episode in World War I history, it's crucial to recognize that it was not experienced everywhere along the front lines. The scope and duration of the truce varied significantly by location. The Christmas Truce primarily took place in specific sectors of the Western Front, where soldiers from opposing sides temporarily laid down their arms to celebrate the holiday. However, it wasn't a universal phenomenon across all fronts, and not every soldier participated in these spontaneous moments of peace. Soldiers shared moments of camaraderie. During the truce, soldiers exchanged small gifts, sang carols, and even played football in no man's land. These moments of camaraderie were indeed heartwarming, but they didn't extend to every inch of the front lines. Varied experiences. In some areas, the truce was short-lived, lasting only for Christmas Day. In others, it extended for several days. Conversely, in certain sectors, the conflict continued unabated, and the truce never materialized. And there you have it. Some common misconceptions about World War I debunked. If you found this video interesting, give it a thumbs up and share it with your fellow history buffs. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.